Oh, we're live on my crappy camera. Sorry we got a crappy camera again, but it is what it is. Sorry I was late. A lot of work crap going on right up until just a minute ago. So it's pretty much been busy. Stand by. I'm going to go get some other props while we're waiting on people to come in. I'm not going anywhere. Everybody sit tight. I'm almost back. All right. So you guys remember the other week, and I showed you this was one of my first ever conversions. This BS. Hey, what's up, Brian? This is one of my first ever conversions, like Spark or something like that. I don't know. It's all in-hill LEDs. See, there you go. It's in-hill LEDs with icicle lights. This is the other one. This is my teensy saber Kylo. That's the one I troop with. Stand by. We'll boot it up. This one's NeoPixel teensy saber. This is the one. This teensy saber one's the one that I made the video with that the Chinese stole. And that was the first NeoPixel. Yeah, I know. That was the first NeoPixel teensy saber. Well, it was the first teensy saber I ever built, and it's still valid today. This Kylo saber with teensy saber V3 is still running the most modern version of the software, so it's still in business. And this in-hill LED Kylo still works just fine too. Tuning. Yeah, the microphone on this camera sucks, Michael. It's not the lightsabers. I go back and watch how the audio is on these streams, and the audio is horrible. Definitely due for a new camera system and a new audio system, so these streams are better. Yeah, they're chunky looking, Brian. Those are Black Series. I was thinking about replacing my Black Series with the Corbant, and I just didn't like the Corbant. I didn't like that hatch. So I'm still trooping with my Black Series. But the cool part about that being chunky looking is it also houses a 26650 battery. So that thing can last forever. Hey, Michael, how are you guys doing? But I know we talked last week about wanting to do some proto boarding, show you how I kind of mock setups up. I didn't have time to build anything for you guys this week. It's been crazy with the microbiology. Right, Brian, but we're not going to talk about that. So that's why I didn't convert my saber to the Corbant, because I've got bigger plans, and nobody better talk about it. Because if I don't get my hands on a couple, I'm going to be frying somebody. But anyway, we talked last week about prototyping, and this is like one of my old prototyping boards that I made for. I know this looks crazy. This was a prototyping board I made for testing teensy saber configs. So basically, I had a bunch of stuff on here, and I could wire a teensy saber and program a config and check different aspects of its config. And I said last week we could work on doing some prototyping using, one of these Adafruit prototyping boards, proto boards. But these things are pretty easy to work. On these boards, you have a positive and a negative line, and these are negatives all the way across, and this second line is positives all the way across. And then these others are common vertically. instead of horizontally. And then you have more common negative and positives horizontally on the bottom. How about now? Still going? You guys have me? Am I back? Okay. Yeah, my computer started updating to the cloud in the background. I got to kill that when we're doing a live stream because that eats up all the internet. So I had to kill that, upload to the cloud. But anyway, what I was saying was I used to sell these teensy sabers that I programmed, and I'd proved that the programming worked on this prototyping board. And I stopped doing that because what happened was I would send somebody a teensy saber and then they would butcher it with their soldering skills. And then they would send it back to me. This board doesn't work. And they would send it back and the board would be all burned up with missing pads and, you know, stuff all glopped up and components missing off the board. And I was like, gee, you know, the board didn't look like that when I sent it off. So I got out of that business because a lot of the folks that are out there that are trying to, you know, they think the only problem they have is programming these things are, you know, that's the only hurdle they have to cross. Well, you got to know how to solder too. So that's why I don't sell program profi boards. Just won't do that. You know, if somebody wants me to change a config, you know, they got to send me their whole saber and then I'll do that. But I haven't even been doing that lately. I've been working on the bathroom. So the final coat of paint went on this morning in the bathroom remod. And I got all the towel racks and all that stuff going back on the walls and the light switch covers back on. So it's almost done. Floors hopefully will start in there tomorrow night. And, you know, once the floors are in, I can install the toilet, put up the shower curtain, and she's done. Thank God, because my living room looks like a construction site right now. So I'll be glad to get all these tools and dust and everything else out of my house and spend a nightmare working around that. Yeah, I'm making good progress on it. But since I didn't have time to build a prototyping board for y'all, and I'm sorry, I just don't have time anymore. And my only free time this week got put into my comms, and I really didn't want to do that. I should have been painting the bathroom the day I was screwing around with my comms. I got the 2813B strips. They have the connector with 3 cables and then an additional red and white. Do I need the red and white? 2813 strip should have 4 pads, and one of them is some sort of redundant data. And I've seen Dimitri say you just connect that redundant data in the center to ground. So there'd be 4 pads. You know, most normal NeoPixels, and put one up here. Most normal NeoPixels have 3 pads. These are these are SK6812s. These are the strips that I use. And they normally have 3 pads. On a WS2813, they have 4 pads. Sorry, 2812B typo. Never heard of WS2812Bs with a 4th pad. Are you talking about when they come from the factory, there's an additional red and white wire? They should be hooked onto the same pads. You should only have 3 pads on the NeoPixels. Let me go grab a new strip. I'll show you. Okay. So this is a brand new strip I have. They're 50/50s, which I don't use these anymore. But so when you first get them, there's an extra white wire in there, and there's an extra red wire in there. You don't need those. Basically, those are all attached to the pads. Remember, you have 3 pads: positive, negative, and data. There's no fear. I mean, I cut off this shrink and desolder these wires and solder plugs to stuff. So I wanted to show y'all something tonight. It's kind of good you guys were asking about that. So, you know, I keep these plugs that come on the NeoPixel kits because you can reuse them for other stuff. So on my test board, if I can find it. Oh, it's right here. So on my test board, basically, This is a prism, and as you can see, this is my data line, and there's a inline resistor. It's a 0603. It's really small, but my green is my data, and you see that goes to the center line on the plug. Then the white goes to these two FETs on the prism, so both the FETs are feeding white, but my red, my positive, goes here, and then I also have a positive lead going to the board, and this is a negative lead to the board. And of course the speaker is hooked to the speaker pads down there, and then I have two buttons rigged up going to the button wires. So that's my rig, and I have a female plug on the rig. Well, the cool thing about the rig is I can take a NeoPixel strip like I showed you here, even if it's a new strip, and I can plug that new strip into the rig just like that, and that's how I test. So when y'all see me testing in the NeoPixel blade building video, that's how I do it. I have this test rig built out of a prism, but you can build these out of nanobiscotti, whatever NeoPixel capable soundboard is out there that's in the junkyard. You know, you can use these things to make a quick test rig like this. You know, this thing works. I'll fire it up here for you. So I'm going to connect my red to positive and my ground, and you hear it boot up, and bada bing. So that's my test rig, and that's how it works. And that's how I can test NeoPixel strips when I get them in. You know, there's nothing to be afraid of on the NeoPixel strips. 7/8 are really tight, and if you're trying to fit WS2812s, which are 50/50s, into a 7/8 blade, you're going to have some side shadowing. I don't sand my blades. I know a lot of guys sand their blades. I do not sand my blades. I try to diffuse them well enough on the inside that I don't have to sand the outside. But if you are going to sand, yeah, 320, 400 grit sounds about what I would use. I wouldn't use anything coarser than that. You're going to have a lot of scratches in the blade. I don't sand my blades, whether they're clear or trans white. I don't sand. I just don't like sanded blades. I never have. You know, Vader's Vault sands their clear blades on the old Inhilts, but I think NeoPixel blades actually have a. This is a 7/8 NeoPixel blade in trans white, and trying to get it to focus on the surface there, but it's not sanded. I don't sand my NeoPixel blades. I just leave them raw. Now they have scratches on them from, you know, hitting other blades and trees and things like that. But yeah, Enoch Root, I was working pretty much all weekend, so that's the story of my life there. The 50/50 strips, Brian, are a tight fit in a 7/8 inch blade. I know some people disagree with me here, but again, when it comes to 50/50 blades, I'm a big proponent of the SK6812 or the 35/35 strips. They're just a lot narrower. Let me show you a comparison. So these are the 50/50s that I showed you the plug on. You can see how wide they are. Here's a 35/35. You can see the difference. The 35/35s are a lot skinnier than the 50/50 strips. And, you know, right now 35/35s, the SK6812s are hard to source. But I'm a bigger fan of the SK6812s versus the WS2812Bs because the WS2812Bs are too wide. And the problem is with that width, you know, this width in the 2812Bs, what happens is, you know, if you notice the pixels are narrower. I'm trying to get it on there so it'll focus on the freaking pixels. The pixels are a lot narrower than the strip. So the light, you know, picture that light coming out of each pixel like this, And what happens is when you look at the blade from the side, there's a really bad shadow that goes down because that light can't get around the edges of the strips. So 50/50s typically have this definitive line on them that you'll hear a lot of people bitch about, a vertical shadow on the blade. And I solve a lot of that vertical shadowing by using narrower strips. So I use the SK6812s or the 3535 strips, which are much narrower. Of course, it is a smaller LED, so there is some compromise in the brightness of your blade, but that compromise is minimal to me. I mean, I've got 50/50 blades that I built and 35/35 blades that I built, and I don't have any issues with the 35/35s at all. To me, they're just as bright as a 50/50 blade, and they have less shadowing issues. So before you build your 7/8 inch blade, which 7/8s are the toughest ones to do. The blades, where did you purchase the blade stock from, Brian? If you got it from the custom saber shop, it's polycarbonate. Polycarbonate's pretty tough. That's like bulletproof glass. You're not going to crack it. My dog's outside barking. I didn't even feed him when I got home from work. But yeah, you're not going to crack the blade. They're made out of polycarbonate. They're pretty tough. If you haven't seen, there's a video of me whacking a tree. Oh, you bought it from somebody on Facebook. Eek. So then you don't know what it's made out of. Most lightsaber blade stock is polycarbonate. I mean, it's probably the stock you have is probably polycarbonate. Um, I wouldn't buy blade stock on Facebook. I would buy it from the custom saber shop or the saber armory or some other reputable source where I know I'm getting polycarbonate. Um, yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, all my blades take a pretty good beating. It's not the plastic I'm worried about on NeoPixel lightsabers. It's what's inside. Um, but if you build a thick wall blade, and I don't know if I have my thick wall blade here. Oh, I do. So this is my thick wall blade. I'm going to try to put it up close to the camera, and it's a clear thick wall blade, and you can see the core on the inside. It's probably called polycarbonate, Brian. Most of these tubes are polycarbonate, but this is my thick wall blade. This is the same blade I was whacking the tree with in that video, and you can see how thick the wall is because you can see that white core in the middle, and that white core is the TCSS strip diffuser, and inside of that, of course, I've got cellophane, then foam, then more cellophane, then shrink wrap, then 35/35 neopixels. So my heavy grade neopixel blade that I built has actually running 35/35 strips. It's probably polycarbonate, Brian. Um, yeah, you shouldn't break it. So if you've got that blade and it's lighting up, what blade are you trying to put those 50/50 strips in? How's everyone else doing? How's everybody surviving the eternal quarantine? I'm still going to work every day. We've lost a couple of our employees due to exposures, not as in they died. They're out on quarantine. So it's been, pretty stressful with what I do for a living. We kind of have to go out to those things and get exposed. So kind of makes me worry for our people that are out there. But yeah, it's it's pretty depressing right now. I'll be glad when this whole nightmare is over with. COVID-19, what a nightmare. But like I said, the timing of COVID was probably pretty good for me. So I was in the middle of remodeling my house, and this bathroom's the last big project. Yeah, Yeah, Brian, you can send me a message on Facebook. I'll try. I try and check that a couple times a day. I'm not really quick on there, so just bear with me. 13 Lake. Working on my Profi build. Just fired up my board with the stock one button mod last night. Got to build your blade. That's awesome. So the easy part's the blade. 13 Lake. Actually, I think on a NeoPixel saber, almost the blade's kind of the hard part, but not because it's difficult. It's just time consuming. Taking your time to build your blades right, I think is important. Hey, Montrell Scott. Yeah, I bet it is crazy up there in Maryland. Uh, I, up north it's kind of nuts, but I'm so far here in North Carolina. It's not like the end of the world, but it's definitely here, especially here where I live. We live in a city. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we're a fairly populated city. Our metropolitan area is probably about 500,000 in the whole region. So there's quite a few people that live here. Our local government closed all our boat ramps and everything, and citizens are all pissed off about that right now. But you know, it is what it is. But what hey 13 Lake, what hilt are you installing? And what NeoPixel adapters are you using? Are you using Stock's NeoPixel hilt adapters, his lit connectors, or using TCSS, MHS? Yeah, I I built a couple of, well, no, not a couple. I built a lot of MHS sabers. Uh, MHS V1, yeah, TCSS. Yeah, my Nihilus saber was made from MHS parts, and my Mako, which was the first custom lightsaber I ever built that was the first saber I built after I converted this saber. I built the my Mako, and Mako initially had spark in it, and then I put igniter in it. And Mako was actually the first NeoPixel lightsaber I ever built, and it's powered by igniter. And I would love to put Profi in it, but I would lose some stuff that I can't do on Profi that I did with igniter. So I'm kind of just leaving the igniter in there. There's nothing wrong with that saber. It's got an exposed crystal chamber on it, but it's really long. My here, I'll show it to you. It's humongous. Stand by. And I brought some other sabers for comparison. So, DV6. And then here's my Mako, which my Mako was my first custom saber. So you see it's humongous. It is humongous. A lot bigger than a DV6. But that's my Mako. It's huge, but I still love it. It's kind of cool. I made the crystal chamber in there with brass washers and stuff. All that's homemade. The crystal chamber wasn't the greatest crystal chamber in the world, but it was my first. And the cool part about this one is it's got the SMD LEDs on the igniter. I used a Graplex button on there too, but it's got all kinds of blinkies and LEDs and stuff going. It's kind of crazy. But that was the first lightsaber I ever made out of MHS. It's just crazy. I mean, I don't know. I was just trying to do something crazy. That was kind of my idea of something that looked pretty evil. The shroud work on that was pretty unique, I thought. And the paint job, I love black and red and silver. And there you go, black and red and silver. That's igniter. its igniter in there. I would love to turn that into a Profi saber, but like I said, I would lose some functionality. And then my so there's a DV6 and there's my Nihilus. So you can see even my Nihilus, this is MHS as well. Now this is Profi in my Nihilus. So this one's pretty bad. That's the Nihilus. Oh yeah, so the shrouds on Mako, yeah, they're definitely dangerous. So the blade shroud, that shroud is like a knife. I mean, you could stab somebody with that. It's sharp and it's metal, and you know, it's definitely like a weapon. You could definitely stab somebody with that. It's kind of crazy. It's big. It's humongous. Um, it is humongous. It was my first one. Yeah, that was my first MHS saber that I ever built. So that was kind of like me cutting my teeth in the lightsaber community. Um, I kept it because it means a lot to me. So yeah, I mean, 13 Lake, I definitely mess around with MHS stuff too. This is an MHS homemade Nihilus saber that I made. Um, all the shrouds and the other aluminum parts on the end of me, it's swallowtail, and the speaker is in there. This thing's pretty loud. This thing's awesome. This Nihilus saber. I think the battery's dead on it right now, but yeah, battery's dead. But yeah, man, these things are a lot of fun. MHS is a lot of fun. How about, did we lose Max? Max, you still on? You still awake down under? Probably nighttime down there for Max. He probably had to go night night. But you know, we're just trying to finish up the house here, and you know, once I get the house finished and get everything cleaned up and you know, stage it for real estate sales, I hope I get to building sabers really quick again. I've got a bunch of Graflexes and a couple DV6s that I need to build. One Graflex going to Florida, one DV6 going to Western North Carolina, and the other ones, you know, we'll see what goes on. But I also want to build my Ben Kenobi saber, my Phoenix Props, the light, um, which I have a pretty nice Goth chassis with brass for that saber, so that's pretty cool. And then eventually, hopefully, I can start building my A New Hope Graflex with the Goth 3D Designs Mentor chassis in it. I'm kind of looking forward to that build. It's sitting over there in a box, and I'm depressed because I haven't had time to mess with it. You know, really haven't had time to do much of anything else besides working on this house. I try to do these live streams every Monday to talk to everybody because I'm kind of going crazy not building lightsabers. It's depressing. And, you know, you guys got stuff you're working on. That's a lot of fun. But anything else? What else? What else are y'all working on? Anything good? Yeah, yeah. Jesse Kirkbride did a modifications to his unstable font, and you know, he sent out the free updates on it, which are, I haven't downloaded the updates yet, but that's on the agenda to do. Yeah, life's sometimes not a lot of fun. You know, it's getting this house ready to sell and getting out of here is stressful. I'm sure the move will be stressful too, but the new house I buy, hopefully it has more space for a workshop, so I'm not crammed into a little bitty corner like I am here. Um, this is a corner of a bedroom in my house, and it was a lot better when I had, you know, a full workshop. So I'm looking forward to getting a workshop. So on the new operating system, 4 point question mark, is in alpha testing right now on the Rebel Armory. You can download it, and Frederick and Fernando are both working on a lot of stuff right now. Um, Frederick's added layers into blade style building, which makes it easier for Fernando to do a bunch of stuff and make the blade style not so long. And those two are like gasoline and fire. Um, when you combine Fernando and Frederick, that was a pretty good combination there. Those two think well together, and I think it was really Fernando and Matt McGreary that got Frederick talked into finally implementing color change on Profi in the last OS update, which was 3.9. But now Frederick's seen some of the blade styles and how much memory they're taking up, and he's trying to squash that memory by creating layers. So yeah, Profi OS update, the 4 point whatever, is going to turn out good. Anything that Fernando and Frederick are working on together is going to be really, really good. I know CFX has come out with localized lockup and another update from Herb Plechter. I have not messed around with CFX. The one CFX I installed, I sold, so I never updated it. And, I was satisfied with where I had it tuned at when it sold, and I thought it was a good board. To me, CFX is still can't compete with the blade styles that are capable on Profi. And I know the smooth swing can be tuned on CFX, but I still like how smooth swing was implemented on Profi better than CFX. Look, they both sound great. CFX is a great board, but you know me, I'm kind of an open source kind of guy. Yeah, I don't think they're going to make it difficult. I think they're going to make it simpler. So, this layer idea that Frederick worked on is going to compress those blade styles. And basically, if you want to add in a function, he's trying to make it simpler to add in the function. All the function stuff will be written in as code in the OS. So if you say, hey, I want localized lockup, you just say, hey, I want this blade with localized lockup, and you just add that layer onto your blade. So yeah, it's actually a simplification from where the operating system is right now, trying to make it easier for people. But even if they don't, you still have Fernando's blade style library, which let me go on here and grab that, and I'll post the link again in the comments. I do this every week because the hardest part in Profi is actually writing your blades. And okay, 13 Lake, I got an answer for you on that too, because Frederick published a video today, and I want to link to that video, so just stand by. If you're having to do that every time you upload to Profi, that means you never installed the driver correctly, and Frederick did a video showing you how to fix that, and he published that video the other day, and I think it's probably one of the greatest videos that Frederick's put out yet. The funny thing is, I was the first one to make that mistake, the mistake that's causing you all your troubles. And Frederick fixed my computer, and he gets this so often that he finally made a video to describe how to fix the problem. And I'm going to send you guys the link to that here right now.
Hello, Saber fans. This is Professor Zaydek.
All right, I'm coming back to you guys. Stand by. I did post it on my Facebook. I posted it on the open source group too. But there's Frederick's new video to show you how to fix it. So yeah, 13 Lake, if you're having to do that every time you upload your Profi, you did not install the driver correctly, or you installed it twice and that screwed it up. And Frederick shows you in that video I just posted in the second link how to fix that. So please watch Frederick's video and fix your computer. when you plug your Profi in, it should just recognize it if you installed your devices, if you installed the drivers correctly. So if you didn't install your drivers correctly, you keep having to press boot and reset, put it in bootloader mode to upload to it. You never installed the drivers correctly. Watch that video that I just linked by Frederick. Fix your computer, and your Profi should work just fine. Frederick shows how to fix it step by step on a Windows machine in that video. Seems like Windows users are having the most problems with that driver, including me. This computer that we're on right now, I had issues when I was first trying to program Profis on this computer, and on my other computer it was working great, but on this computer it wasn't. And so I sent a bunch of screenshots to Frederick on the TRA, and he finally figured out what was causing it, and he fixed this computer. And then of course everybody that's installing the drivers is doing the same thing, so there must be some fault in Windows or whatever, or you know maybe it's us just being paranoid. But the bottom line is that on Windows machines, if you're having to do that to upload your Profi, watch that video from Frederick and fix your computer, and you'll be in business, and you will never touch Zadig again. Zadig is a one-time thing on Windows. You do it once and that's it. If you did it twice, you screwed up your drivers, and that's probably the issue. I never hit boot or reset at all, ever. When I'm programming Profis, I plug it in, I find the port, and upload. I never hit. I have very rarely needed to press the reset and boot buttons on my Profi. The only time I had to do that, one time, I was uploading a Profi, and my USB cord got pulled out in the middle of the upload, and an interrupted upload like that will screw up the Profi. So once you screw up a Profi like that, if an upload gets interrupted midstream, the only way to get it back is to press the boot and reset buttons to put it in bootloader mode, and then just hit upload. That's the way to get it back. But yeah, when you follow Frederick's video, you'll fix what Zadig messed up. Zadig messed up. However you say that. Zadig. I don't know. Jeff Birch calls it Zadig. I call it Zadig. I don't know. I'm not from Canada. Zadig, tomato. Who knows? But yeah, I hope Frederick's video helped you fix that. And anybody else that's having that issue, it's good to know that you can revert to Frederick's video there. I did publish that video link on open source, hoping the mods would pin it, because that video probably should be pinned because so many people have that same issue. So you're not alone, 13 Lake. I know some pretty big installers, and every time they went to program a Profi, they were having to boot and reset to put it in bootloader mode to program it. And they were writing good configs and all, but their computer wasn't set up properly. So for Frederick to do that video, that's huge for Windows users because they can go fix their computers. And I get to say, I was the first. I was the first to screw up the drivers on Profis, and I did that when Profis were in beta. And Frederick had to walk me through it. You can go and look on that Profi 1.5 beta thread on the TRA, and you'll see all that back and forth between me and Frederick over how to fix it. And Frederick's had to answer that question so many times, I think he got sick of it, so he just shot a video, and it's all screenshot on his computer. And he published that on April 4th, so what, 2 days ago? And I'm like, oh my God, everybody needs to see this. So I put it on the Facebook open source group, and I put it on Megtooth Sabers page too. And the more people that see that video, the better. So, hey, that's why I like doing these live streams. It's a way for me to kind of say what's important out there. I guess we lost Max. Max went to bed. We lost our thunder from down under. Max had to go to bed. We were too late for him. But at any rate, I don't have a whole lot else. You guys got anything else? I want to go see Jen Jen. I'm going to have to go get cleaned up and feed Risky and grab something to eat and then head over to Jen Jen's. Yeah. Um, Ron, I mean, the 50/50 strips will work in a 7/8 inch blade. Um, I just think you'd be better off with the 35/35s. Any pointer on making a shorter Shoto NeoPixel blade? Um, I've got a lot of blade stock, shorter pieces of blade stock. Um, I just think you're basically going to use fewer NeoPixels to make a shorter blade. That's one of the things that's on my agenda to do because when I'm demoing sabers, I have to use a full size blade and then I have to go shoot that video in my garage. And, the sound quality out there in the garage is a mess. But yeah, I mean, you can build a shorter blade. You just use your cut off pieces of blade stock or, cut a small piece of blade stock and just build a shorter blade. I would use the same methods I used to build a big NeoPixel blade to make a small one. I would just make a small one like that. You stripped your retention screw. Do you know how to get it out? You you strip like where the Allen key goes into the retention screw. Is it a Allen key? Like it's recessed? If you did that, Dylan, they make a tool that's called an easy out, and you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's, Home Creepo or Lowe's, um, and in where the drill bits are at, you can find easy outs. And basically, what an easy out does is it's like a reverse threaded drill bit, and it's hardened steel, and you put it in your drill and you drive it in to where the Allen key would go. So there's different sizes of easy outs, but you drive it in using reverse. So it actually drives into that Allen key in reverse. And because it drives in reverse, once it stops, you can then back the Allen key out with your drill. Just go slow and do it on low speed. But easy out is the tool you need to get that uh, stripped out blade retention set screw out of there. Um, well, now there's two places where you have blade counts in the config. In the header part of the config and the top of the config, that defines how many neopixels you're using per meter. So that number is 144, but down in your blade define in the bottom of the config should be where your actual neopixel blade length is at. And most of my blades are 129, 130, something like that, 34-inch blades, 34 and a half. They're about 129, 130 neopixels. So in my blade defines in the bottom of the config, I've got, hey, this blade's 130 neopixels. But if I built a shorter blade like a Shoto blade, I wouldn't change that. But that's where, if you take advantage of the blade resistor detect features of Profi, you can program your Profi to recognize different blades. So if you put the Shoto blade in that's short, you can still get all your effects on it and tip drag and everything. If you use the blade ID resistors on your blades, so that's a way you could program the config file for blade ID resistors. So you need to do some research on TRA about blade ID, and then you could have if it doesn't sense a blade identification resistor, you could say, hey, it's 129 pixels. Whereas if you put your Shoto blade in, you'll have a blade ID resistor in the Shoto blade. And when the Profi first boots up, it feels for that resistor or, puts out a sense signal. And if it senses your shorter blade, then it'll know, hey, I used the shorter blade NeoPixel defines in the blade defines of the config. But I haven't messed around with blade ID yet. So yeah. So Dylan, yeah, you need to buy Easy Out. Easy Out may be Milwaukee's trademarked name for that tool, but you need a Easy Out or a screw removal set, and you'll have to get assorted sizes because most of those blade set screws are 832. That's what I use, and the socket is I think 5/16 hex. So you're gonna have to get an Easy Out that'll fit inside of that 5/16 hex and go in there. The big worry I'd have is if you strip that hex, I'm wondering if you haven't boogered your threads where it fits in. And if that's the case, you might have to drill and tap a bigger blade retention screw into that hole once you get it out. But if you get it out and you can get a new one to thread in there, and you just strip the head, then there you go. At 13 Lake, I appreciate it. But yeah, the Profi can recognize different blades and different blade lengths with blade identification. And you actually put the resistor. I haven't messed around with this, so I'm not an expert in blade ID. I know it exists and I know you can do it. I just haven't. Um, haven't messed around with it, but it does exist. The Profi can sense different blades and run different lengths of blades for whichever blade ID you have it set up for. So I think you need to do some research into blade ID resistors, and you should be good to go there. But yeah. So Burst challenged me. He said I couldn't stick to my time limit, and it's 7:22, and we're well within the time limit. And I also started late. So I'm trying to prove to Birch that I can stay within the time limits, unlike the Canadians out there in Kanakistan on the West Coast. Yeah, Jeff Birch does these live videos too. And thank you. Thank you for saying I communicate well. I appreciate it. But yeah, I like talking to you guys. And to me right now, these Monday Megtooth live videos are good for me because it kind of gets me out of painting. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but I got paint on my fingers, paint everywhere. This gets me away from painting. It gets me away from sand and sheetrock and construction, and makes me remember that I like building lightsabers, and it almost motivates me to finish so I can get done with this mess, so I can get back to building lightsabers. And if it helps you guys while I'm, yeah, COVID crust on my nails. If this helps you guys out while you're home on, the quarantine, it depends, Jetta. It depends. Most of my 2.5s are pretty short. You'd actually have to measure. I can show you how. So, like, here's a blade plug on my DV6. So I'm going to loosen the retention screw and pull out my blade plug. And this is just, normal DV6, but it's NeoPixel. And let's see here. I think. So you need to go to Home Creepo and buy you a caliper like this. And basically, what this caliper has on it, hang on a minute, I got to loosen up the retention, is it has a probe. See down there, that probe going down? And that probe can measure depth. So then you take that probe and you put it inside of your lightsaber, and that tells you the depth of your blade plug, which you can see it's 21 point something millimeters, right? And then look at my blade plug. There you go. So you need to buy one of these calipers from the Home Creepo, and you can either do it in millimeters or inches. If you're ordering it from Kaz at Darkside Engineering, he can do it in inches or millimeters. I usually give him millimeters because it's more accurate. But that's what you do. So you have a plunge, a depth recorder on this thing, that thing that comes out. So you just put that inside your lightsaber and measure the depth. And you also have to make sure you're telling him you're doing a NeoPixel blade plug if you're doing a NeoPixel one, so that he can leave. He'll cut it shorter so your butt end cap on the NeoPixel adapter can go in there. He's familiar with all this, and he has the measurements for the TCSS connectors. If it's going to be NeoPixel, you just need to tell him, hey, this is for a NeoPixel lightsaber blade plug that I'm doing, and then you'll be golden. So I'm going to put my blade plug back in. So yeah, that's how you figure that out. It's not that difficult. It's just a good tool. Answered a lot of questions tonight. I'm feeling good. Um, yeah, they're on my Facebook, Jake the Snake, and right now I'm not doing commissions. Right now I'm in the middle of a home remodel. I haven't taken commissions since last April. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to clear out my queue of everything else that was backed up. And I have a bunch of sabers that are done that need to ship, but they need to ship to Hong Kong. And then he's also sent me, I've got 4 more hilts of his here that I've got to get done. But yeah, I mean, my install prices are pretty simple. It's $250 labor plus parts. And, there's programming fee on Profi too, but, that's for 12 presets. At any rate, you can figure, $250 plus parts. If it's a Profi, it's going to be an additional $50 to program it. But right now, I'm not taking commissions. Sorry. All right. If you need a Profi commission, right now I highly suggest. Oh hell, trying to remember his name right now. I'm having a mental block. Going to force me to exceed my time limit, and Jeff Birch is going to make fun of me, the Canadian. That's the last thing I need is some Canuck making fun of me because I exceeded my self-imposed time limit. Hang on a minute. I'm going to have to go to the TRA because I'm really having a mental block. It's driving me crazy. So stand by. I'll give you his name, the one that I suggest, and he's actually a member of the Armory. Peacekeeper's Armory. That's it. Peacekeeper's Armory. I know. It's been a long day. Peacekeeper's Armory. He's a man. He's out in California. He does some really cool Profi installs, and I think he's probably done more and knows more about Profi than anybody else besides Frederick. He's done some really complicated stuff with Profi, including a really cool Blind Knight saber that probably is that saber has more features and more gimmicks in it than anything that I've ever seen in my life. It's just an incredible piece of work, and he does a lot of complex Graflex lightsabers with Martin Beyer chassis. I don't know of any Colorado guys, Ron Davis, but yep, Gary Jr. runs that outfit. That's right. Gary Jr. he's tops in my books. So if you need Profi, Peacekeeper's Armory and Gary Jr. is the way to go right now. He is incredible. And not to mention the fact that he and I are in the same line of work, hence his company name. But at any rate, that's about enough for tonight. I don't want to give the Canucks any excuses to give me a bunch of crap. And this includes the real Canucks, too, if any of them are watching. But at any rate, yeah, nerd up. It's time to leave. Hashtag nerd up, everybody. Be nice to each other and help each other out and build lightsabers. That's what you guys should be doing while you're home. How come you guys aren't building more sabers? You got all the time in the world now. But seriously, from my family to yours, nothing but the best to all of you. And I pray for all you and your families and, for us all to get through this crap. And I'm tired. Rich just signed in. Damn it. Sorry, Rich, you're too late. I got to sign off. I got to keep Birch from having stuff to pick on me about. The Canadians. So I got to sign off. Then may the force be with you all, or the dark side, as it were. Take care, everybody. I got to go see Jen Jen. Peace.